Hey everyone, welcome to That Pedal Show. Dan here.
Mick here, hello, welcome to the show. Before we get into anything, please subscribe. Please click the subscribe button. It doesn't cost you anything, but it does help us out big time, so please do that.
Yes, indeed.
And visit thatpedalshowstore.com where we sell merch. That is the primary way we fund this show. Okay, if you haven't turned off already, we had much fun.
We had too much fun. I'm still paying for the fun.
Yes, there was sickness. We'll tell that story as we go. We did a very short run of gigs with Andy Timmons in tow.
Just truly wonderful.
Just amazing. That Pedal Show Band, we played a set, Andy played a set, and then at the end we all played together, inevitably. Can't believe we actually played Hot for Teacher, but there we go. Well, actually, Andy
we
Timmons.
didn't play it. Andy played it. We were flapping around the periphery.
Yeah.
That's a good name for an album. Flapping around the periphery.
Anyway, so that was good fun. People have asked to see the rigs that we used on the shows and just reflect back on what we learned from using those rigs. So I'm going to go first today and just talk through the stuff I used. And it would be appropriate now to tell the story. So these gigs were organised a long time ago. Mm-hmm. It might sound like some excuses come out. They're not excuses, they're mere facts.
Okay.
Okay.
Tell us the mere facts.
Fact number one, 10 days before the gig, I was happily chopping away some garlic in the kitchen. And lo and behold, I do not believe it. I'll put a picture on screen now. It probably in the picture looks worse than it is, but nevertheless, it was a problem.
That was a problem.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Short story, I went to see a medical professional who advised me to keep it covered up, and it did heal. It eventually healed. But what it meant was...
So show me. Where's it at? Okay, that's pretty good.
Completely healed.
Yeah.
What it meant was I couldn't do any rehearsing for the shows. So we had one rehearsal, and in the rehearsal, I've got this massive bandage on my finger. So that was problem number one. Problem number two, I came down with a throat infection, like a week before the gigs, which I thought was going to clear up, which didn't clear up. So we had to get in Jake, who was coming with, Jake's filming today. Jake was coming with us to do the merch. And from the lemons we were dealt, we made lemonade.
Indeed.
And it was great. Everyone
Tasty
had a great
lemonade.
time.
Yeah.
And we should say to everyone, thank you so much for coming out and having a good laugh with us, because it was a good laugh. The reason for saying all of that is not about making an excuse for being underprepared or anything like that. It's merely to say, it put me in a very different headspace about my guitar rig.
Right.
So what I distinctly remember from the one rehearsal we had was playing, looking down at my pedal board, and I just could not remember what preset I needed for the delay.
Okay.
I couldn't remember what preset I needed for the reverb. Normally I would use a Free the Tone Future Factory delay and a Chase Bliss CXM 78 reverb. And my brain just turned to jelly, maybe because I was sick, maybe because whatever. And what I realised, sorry, I will try and make this brief, but it's really relevant. Tim Lerch came on the show and he described the 3 stages of learning. Mm-hmm. He described stage 1, learning. You have to learn the stuff, where to put your fingers, what the notes are, and to do that, your brain needs to be fully engaged, right? That's what learning is. Step 2, routine.
Yeah.
Your brain can then be slightly more detached, and you are practicing what you've learned in terms of routine. And I would say that's as applicable to things like patch changes,
very true,
pedalboard changes, and all of that as it is to what notes to play. And then in the third stage, your brain is disconnected and you just play. Mm-hmm. So you've practiced, you've routined, and then when it comes to the gig, you turn your brain off and you just play. Unfortunately, I only got to stage 1.
Right.
So my brain was fully engaged, and I just couldn't do this and that. Result, sorry for the long introduction, but it is really relevant. I had to simplify.
Yeah.
I had to go back to what I know. So let's start there. What I know is loud, louder, loudest.
Nice.
And that's how I've always run my rig. So gain stage number 1, Tube Screamer. I use 2 guitars on the gigs, this Strat and a Lester, which I'll pick up in a minute. Actually, as a complete side tangent, consensus was the Gibsons had it for the gigs.
Right.
Everyone said the Gibson sounded better than the Fenders.
Right.
Most people did.
Okay.
For both of us.
Yeah.
Kind of interesting.
Yeah. Well, funnily enough, for me,
Dan's rig is coming up, by the way.
yeah. Okay, we'll get into that. But I reluctantly put the SG down to pick this up.
We'll talk about that in a minute. Okay, so I'll just run through my gain stages. 2 amps, the classic reverb SIG and the TS1 running wet dry. The classic reverb SIG is running wet. At the Cavern, the first gig, they were side by side like this. At the next 2 gigs, they were all stacked on top of one another. And actually, I didn't mind. I didn't mind it. I was happy both ways.
Right. Okay, great.
Ultimately preferred them side by side.
Yeah, me
but
too.
there was a benefit in having the TS1 up a bit at the Cavern. At the next 2 gigs. And I enjoyed the sound just as much.
Right, great.
Yeah, anyway, okay. So
It did sound wonderful.
Here's just the amps then. Quite a lot of mid-range, quite a lot of that mid thing that I like.
Beautiful.
To be honest, pretty much never use it without a pedal on.
Yeah.
Stage 1, actually I'll go over to the tube driver first, because this was kind of almost the always-on overdrive.
Okay.
And you'll notice, look at the settings. Who sets their flipping pedal like that? Throughout the gig, I did 2 things with the tube driver, and I'll show you what those things were.
Okay.
That was the extent of the modifications I made during the gig. So, and the reasons for that will become apparent in a minute. A little tiny bit more gain and less output level and vice versa. If I needed a more overdriven sound. One of the main drivers for going simple is because the last year or 2 for me, probably, has been a drive towards simplicity and trying to get rid of excess gain. Now, for those of you who like clean sounds, that might sound like a completely crazy thing to say. But I'm trying to, every time you add more gain, every time you add more effects, it sounds weaker to me.
Right.
And I'm trying to get away from that.
Okay.
So I want a stronger guitar sound, which you'll hear with the Lester in a minute. Okay, Tube Screamer. Neck pickup is almost too dark, bridge pickup bit nasally,
Right.
but I'm never using it like that.
Okay.
Maybe with the Lester, but not with the Strat. What
Right.
I'm using it for is this. To juice the front of the tube
That's
driver.
perfect.
Yeah.
What a great sound.
And then that. Final gain pedal, and by the time we've explained everything, I'll just put the Lester on and whip through a few sounds. The Argo I use in 2 ways.
Right.
The first way is this, which is a solo boost. So as you can see from the settings here, the fuzz is at 0, the blender's at 0,
Right.
and the booster's at about 9 o'clock.
Okay.
And then with that you get.
Beautiful.
Bit of a boost, and there's a lot more if you want for the solo boost.
So whereas you're using the tube screamer to shape the input,
Yeah.
and you're focusing and tightening up the bottom end, that is bigger,
Louder.
louder.
Yeah.
Wow.
On the end. And actually quite a nice boost just on its own. And then inevitably, all three together. For all of it, so stacked. Even though, look, the gain control on the tube screamer is here, on the tube driver it's there, and there's no gain in the Argo. I'm using those three to sort of stack together to create an overdrive that's rich harmonically.
So what's really interesting, sonically they're all so different, but how they work so beautifully together.
Yeah.
Really awesome.
And
man.
that's right back to basics for me in terms of I'm going to say it doesn't really matter what the three pedals are.
Oh, it really does.
Of course it does, but you can get any three pedals to do that basic job as long as you don't run the gains too high. Because once you start running the gains too high, it just sounds thin and mushy and small. And
Yeah,
I
but
didn't want that.
you've got to be careful with the bottom end of the pedal you're using to boost your main gain.
Yeah,
Tube screamer is perfect for that.
yeah. Well, Paul Stacey actually encouraged me to put a bit more bottom end in this
Oh, okay.
and get a bit more going from the beginning. But
Right.
anyway, it worked great, and but maybe Dan will reflect on this a bit more as we get going. But I wasn't after copying any sound.
Yeah.
I didn't, whatever track we were doing, I didn't want to cop that sound. I wanted to have a sound that was comfortable, that I was comfortable playing with, that I could then make fit the track,
Yeah.
because I needed to be in that no-brain
Yeah. mind
space. The minute I start thinking about the board is the minute my playing goes to absolute toss. To use a colloquialism. But if I start thinking about the sound, I'm done.
Right.
I may as well just stop.
Sure.
So I can't do that. Right, before you hear the Leicester then, I always have one wobbly, and that wobbly is always going to be the Harmonious Monk if there's just one, and that's going wet dry to the Harmonious Monk itself is going to the classic reverb and not to the TS1.
What a sound.
Bit of movement, I love it.
What a
Delay, again, I said I couldn't remember the presets on my Free the Tone. My brain just couldn't remember where things were.
Right.
So I went back to something more familiar, and actually I got totally confused with this as well, which is really annoying, because lo and behold, when you double press, you go into preset mode on this.
Okay.
So for the 3/4 of the Cavern gig, I just turned the delay off because I got confused.
Right.
So a case of the brain being a problem there.
Sure.
But back to an analog delay, I am trying to get rid of as much digital stuff off my board as possible, analog drive-through or not. So I used it in two ways. One, with the modulation on, and what's quite handy, when you use the Amazeo, you can turn the modulation on and off, right? Turn the level up a bit so you can hear it a bit better. Then you get
What a sound.
tap tempo as well. And even better, because it's got two delays, it's a dual delay, I've got side A set up as a permanent slapback.
Right.
So I've got my tap on here so I can, you know. And then just switch to an instant slapback. It's very nice. Give you a quick listen to the humbuckers before we get down on. So one thing that I learned about having these gain stages set in this way, just enough for the Strat.
And almost too much for the Lester.
Well, maybe, but then I've got that, I can turn it down on the drive.
Okay.
Which is what I was saying earlier about changing it.
Okay. So that was a guitar specific thing.
Partly, and a song specific thing.
Right, okay.
But what it did is it let the Lester sound like the Lester and the Strat sound like the Strat.
Yeah.
Might be, it's very mid-range. What I'm noticing is super mid-rangey in here, so it might be that we're a bit mid-heavy. But in any case, I also replaced the volume pot in this finally.
Okay.
So it would be interesting to see if that still works. So with nothing on, the Lester obviously just sounds a bit stronger straight out the gate. I'm grimacing because it's rock.
Don't play that?
Don't play that.
Thank you.
So even with those two on, it's now kind of too gainy.
That's not too gainy. I think it's beautiful.
What I was finding was in the band mix, any more gain than that, I just got lost.
Oh,
And
interesting.
it's too compressed, too much gain, too thin. So I just go back to here.
All right.
And then just knock the gain off a bit, and maybe even just down on the tube screamer a bit. I'm having a tuning problem. Yeah, sorry, bit of a tuning issue. Still probably sounds very gainy to people who who use more of a clean sound, and probably sounds relatively clean to people who use heavy gain. But
yeah, right.
I'm just trying to get to that point where, let's turn the tube screamer off now. We'll turn this up again and that down again. And
It's got such a distinctive breakup characteristic, the tube driver.
yeah,
It really doesn't sound like anything else. It's such an awesome sounding thing.
and then again, in the spirit of WYSIWYG, I like pedals that you can see exactly what's going on.
Yeah, yeah.
If it is too much bass, right? So one click, one or two clicks in any direction, I can just shape it on the fly, don't have to think, no programming, no menus, no nothing, to get the most interaction of guitar and speaker. Finally then, sorry, this has turned into way too long. The Evermore, I've been fighting with reverb for so long now.
Right.
What I want is just a small room sound.
Okay.
The Chase Bliss CXM 1978 does it better than anything, but it's big and I can't remember.
Flipping heck, mate. That sounds amazing.
Nice, isn't it?
Yeah, that's really amazing.
And I think that's probably why the people we spoke to said that this certainly for my guitar sounds, was the guitar of the night, and just kind of worked in the set we played. And I'm, you know,
Wow.
fine. So loud, louder, loudest, one wobbly, delay, and reverb, and trying to just. I know it will sound completely crackers to those of you who use a clean sound, but that is less gain than I have been using in recent years.
Right.
Trying to every time trying to go, can I turn the gain down? Can I turn the gain down? Not to the point of can I play clean? It's not the same thing. It's can I get an overdrive sound with the minimum amount of gain possible? Because that's clarity and that's strong. And that's what I've been hearing in all the good players that come through here.
Yeah.
Their sounds are always strong.
Yes.
And
defined and
So anyway, that's where it ended up. Actually, saying I'm going to rip it all off and change it out, that's not entirely true. So happy with the Tube Screamer, the Tube Driver, and the Argo.
What a combination.
Oh, sorry. Finally. Apologies. This gig's going to be... this show's going to be way too long. I
No
forgot.
apologies.
I was saying I use the Argo in two ways, right?
Yeah.
I was saying I use the Argo in two ways. The first way was as the boost.
Wicked.
Yeah,
So good.
it does involve a quick bend down to go from that back to
Quick bend down never really hurt anyone.
that. And it probably isn't too much of a real reveal to say that we are working with Zach to put that in one pedal with a switch on it, because it just works perfectly for me.
Beautiful. Really, really beautiful.
Happy days.
Yeah, man. Awesome.
Ready?
Yep. Back in the room. Okay. Here's my rig. It's changed quite a lot. When we got into rehearsals...
Not since the gig.
No, not since the gig. No. It changed quite a lot from what I thought I was going to be using to what I ended up using.
Yeah.
Okay. And there was a couple of song-specific things on here.
Yeah, polar opposite to me. So where I didn't go for any sounds, Dan kind of had to.
But that's okay, because I like doing that.
No, but you had to for the...
Yeah,
what I'm saying is for the
of course.
specific
For some,
songs.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So we've got... I'll take you through. So the amps I used, Matchless. I love that thing. 1x12. So it's funny, at rehearsal, because I got two of those Bob Burt cabs, and the one that I liked was the ceramic, what was it, the 865.
That's a good question. No, it's a creamback. It's
No,
it's you've got Alnico cream and a creamback.
okay. So the one I liked was the creamback.
Yeah, it's a 75 watt G12H creamback.
Yes. And that's the one I was using. Oh, this is great. But the one I ended up with on the road was the Alnico. And because I just put the wrong cab in when we were throwing because the cabs look identical. And it actually sounds great. Really pleased with it. And the Lazy J. So that J's been with me, man, 11, 12 years now. And I love that amp. It's
Interesting, both
so
of us.
Great.
2 112s.
Yeah.
No 212s, no 412s anymore.
No.
Sad face.
Well, I mean, when we were rehearsing, and we rehearsed properly loud, it was like,
not quite that loud.
but you know, we've heard like,
Yeah.
it's like the need for two 2x12 cabs just really wasn't there. But this sounds massive, right? So, all right, amps together, need the layoff. The matchless is breaking up a little bit. It's in 15-watt mode, right?
So more treble and more overdrive
From the matchless.
than in my rig, for example.
Yep. The J is more open, so J.
Wow.
Yep.
The bottom end coupling is astonishing. Almost no bass coming out of the
No,
matchless.
it's all sizzle. And I've got, this is, you know, the maximum amount of bottom end that I can get. I think it's that speaker, because it's such a bright speaker, but they work really well together.
And it's a powerful speaker, so you need
Very
to hit
powerful.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, two amps together sound great. So my first gain stage, and this is same for you, but basically my always on pedal. If we just have a quick look underneath here. So, Bob Burt, King of Tone, the
Bad Bob.
Bad Bob, King of Tone, and the SD6.
Bob Burt.
So Bob Burt, Bad Bob.
Bad Bob.
So Bad Bob into Bob Burt.
Yeah.
So the Bad Bob, this is it's basically the always on tone.
So was it on then?
No, so that's just the amps.
Okay.
Right. So Bad Bob. That's just the reverb from the Laser J.
Yeah.
But what the Bob gives me is this. So I hit it and it's really gainy, right? Then it's compressing, it's breaking up, you back off, it cleans up. It's flippin' amazing. I absolutely love that thing. And I think especially with these two amplifiers, because they're so sensitive at their input, it just works brilliantly. So that was that's my clean tone is that backed off a little bit on the volume.
Yep.
Next gain stage is the Harlot. This is it's like my tube driver. So and that's being very noisy. So it's thicker, creamier, just a really fantastic overdrive. But what I will then do, the other gain stage I've got, the King of Tone. So after we did our Tube Screamer episode.
King of Tone's underneath, by the way, so you can see there.
So I'm just using the boost side. I'm not using the overdrive.
There you go. That is so that pedal show. I'm using one of the rarest overdrives in the world. I'm only using half of it.
Well, but what I would do is I would have the Harlot on, and if we hear the boost side on its own.
My apologies, Dan. Is the King of Tone after the Harlot?
King of Tone is before the Harlot.
Before the Harlot. Okay,
Yeah.
so you're going into it.
Going into it.
Yep.
So, the King of Tone on its own. The King of Tone is actually in the Oggs loop here. I'm using that as like a 13th loop. And so it's doing the same job. The only reason I didn't put a tube screamer on is I didn't have one to hand. I know, but we weren't here.
Oh, okay.
So I decided to do it. But you can hear it's doing the same thing. It's tightening up that bottom end, right? So... So into the Harlot. So it adds gain, but tightens up, a bit. So that was the more gain thing.
The push in, to give you that sort of thickness in the middle. It's so interesting that everyone's approach to gain stacking being a little bit different, but what suits the guitar and your
Completely.
right hand and all of that. It's
Yeah.
such a personal thing.
Completely. And the other gain stage then is the SD9. So the SD9 is actually voiced similar to the Harlot, but just more gain and more fizz. And that was for a very specific song. So I'll go from the Harlot to the SD9 so you can hear the difference.
It's blimmin' fascinating, right? We will end up doing the Anderton's blind fold overdrive pedal thing for a goof about. If we were blindfolded there, having not heard them, I would not have been able to tell you which was which there.
Yeah.
And I would have gone to Ladbrokes to say they would be so different.
Yeah.
But because you've got them set in a certain way, I mean, if we changed the settings on the SD9, it would be very obvious.
Look at how the SD9 is set. It's
You must have the tone pretty low.
it's like tone is almost off.
Yeah,
The distortion is almost off, and the level is up.
yeah.
So, but I found we did that show, and it's like, oh my goodness, this is incredible. And I specifically used that.
I started off with a butter machine on my board, the Landau one, which is the sort of extension of the SD9. And it just wasn't working in our set. It was I couldn't get the fizz low enough and the bass low enough, weirdly. But
So, for one song that we did,
this would be Queens of the Stone Age, No One Knows.
yeah, that's right. So, the Leicester, but tuned down to C. You've got to be so careful because it's so slinky and you hit it hard. It's awful. Yeah, so C standard. So it's all the same intervals as you would on your normal tuning.
Normal tuning, yeah.
But with this on. And the funny thing is, because I played that song, we played that song before, and I'd always just played it in C.
Play it standard tuning, yeah.
But it's like, didn't really make sense until, and we did that when you were playing standard and I was playing this, and it was like the two guitars together sounded flippin' massive.
Yeah.
Like, you know, got to be done.
And I deliberately picked up the Strat for that song so it would be thin.
Right.
Because that's fat. Can't have too fat. That would not work. So I did thin, he did fat.
Yeah.
We end up with medium-sized or something like that.
So that's, you know, that sound was, you know, for the heavy parts, and it sounds great. And one thing that I also did with that one, the solo, is I kicked in the tensor and some reverb, because I had this reverse delay going on.
Oh, wow, okay.
Which is from the tensor. So let me see if I can get that going. So, yeah, for that, but that was for that, you know, this guitar just for the one song, but it's so worth doing. It's a flippin' ace.
You're totally right what you said. You know, we've played that song before in the band, and it was okay. You know, it's okay. And then he brings out the drop tune guitar, and it's like, okay.
Yeah, it is.
That makes sense.
There it is. So, this gig was also the maiden voyage for this guitar.
We'll just use a Chris Buckism and say that Dan is just fiddling with the dead man's toenails.
the old tuning pegs. And Chris is like...
That's what he referred to.
He's going, this guitar's great. He goes, ugh! So good. So, yeah. So, you know, such a wonderful thing. And hearing that with the Bad Bob, again, just the Bad Bob and into the amps.
Rock.
Yeah, just so good. So, you know, I use this for you know, as much as I can. Obviously, the telly's home.
What was your playing experience then? So Dan's done literally thousands of gigs on Red.
Yeah.
And no gigs at all on this until...
Yeah.
What was your experience?
For the rock thing, I mean, the bridge pickup on Red's pretty extraordinary, but there's a voice that this thing's got that is, I just have completely fallen in love with. However, I have to be super careful with my right hand with this guitar.
Yeah.
With Red, I can bash the crap out of that thing. It's like, it'll just take it. This, I've got to be really careful with how I hit it. But if I'm considerate about it, it's rewards. It's really great. You know, if I go to a heavy, like the same SD9 tone with this, and if I hit it hard, it's out of tune. But if I approach it consideredly,
just sounds magic.
yeah, I'm
Utterly magic.
But I've had to learn to play it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's because it's such a wildly different guitar, but getting into the weeds with it, I've completely fallen in love.
Was the delay you turned on there the Otto?
The Otto.
Man, that sounds so good.
So that's the thing.
Sounds so good.
So one thing I'm doing, I'm running stereo delay and stereo reverb. I don't know how long that's going to stick around for.
Well, there's a question then to bring us on to delays and reverbs. We sat in this room week in, week out predominantly. I mean, I did more gigs than I normally do last year, but Dan, you didn't do many gigs at all.
No.
And you do get used to the sort of the sound of this room where you can hear everything really clearly.
Yeah.
What was your experience? 'Cause one of the questions we get asked a lot on TPS is, how on earth do you use all that delay and reverb in a band? So what was your experience of that?
I did the Andy Timmons thing where I've got the delay and reverb under the expression pedal on the right-hand side.
Yeah.
So, you know, let's just, for example, if I keep that on. I'll do the same thing, I'll turn the reverb on at the same time as well.
Fascinating. That slide, I don't know if you noticed there. Watch how much the slider moves on the CXM. It's literally hardly anything.
Yeah. So I struggled with getting those levels right. I was on the expression pedal all the time.
Yeah.
Now, I got that from Andy Timmons, watching him do his thing, and he's on the expression pedal all the time as well. And it's beautiful. He doesn't use reverb.
Only delay, isn't it?
Only delay.
Yeah.
So I absolutely love the sound of that reverb, but I don't know if with the bit of spring reverb I've got in the J, I just don't know how much I'm going to be needing it. Because the Otto sounds so great. It's doing the same thing it does in Andy's rig.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It gives me that wash.
Actually, I'm not sure what order these shows are going to go out in, but we had Chris Buck in yesterday to film a show, and he was doing what Dan was just explaining with his Echo Rec.
Yeah.
So he has a Catlin bred Echo Rec, and he uses that as that kind of delay wash underneath, that the delay sound is dark and with lots of repeats and with a long delay sound. So it ends up sounding like reverb in exactly the same way that Andy Timmons does.
Yeah.
Coming back to the point about the CXM, in order to use that sound space in your set, you need a lot of space in the music. And the nature of the TPS Band set was fairly busy music all the way through. So I think the subtleties of those more complex reverbs do get lost a bit.
Yeah, sure. So one thing I have started doing is using the delay and reverb separately. If I've got delay on, I probably won't have the reverb on, and vice versa. Because I'm finding that, you know, if I've got, you know, that's enough.
That's a lot.
Right? That's a lot. And vice versa, put the delay on. So, yeah, they say different things, you know, but so I'm kind of, that thing where you normally have delay and reverb on together, I'm doing that less and less. So then I get into things like the chorus thing, so I'm splitting my old Diamond Vibrato. I just saw a sneak peek on Instagram yesterday from Diamond.
Oh, they're doing it, are they?
Well, no, it was just a colour that looked like that. So if they bring this back, it's, you know.
When Diamond ceased trading for a minute, got revamped, and they introduced a whole bunch of new pedals, but tellingly did not include the vibrato in the first of the new pedals for whatever reason. So we are hoping that they will do it again.
Yeah. So this is my go-to chorus, and because I do the wet dry thing, I send the vibrato to one side. So, you know, we get this sound.
There's Dan. There's Dan. Sounds mega.
I love that sound so much.
What's lovely about that is you might associate that sort of sound with a very clean sound, but there's actually quite a lot of overdrive going on there.
So I've got the bob, the bad bob, in there because what it gives me is that back off thing. Because when we do, you know, a song like let's put some reverb on that. Tilt that back a little bit. So if we're doing I can then turn it up. And it's all, you know, it's all still there. Yeah. So like with the clean sound, I'll always have a dynamic low gain overdrive on to do that. So that's basically it. Oh, the other thing. So we did.
What are you using the Meris for?
So the Meris is in the same loop as the delay.
Right.
So basically, it would be if I had. But I wanted to go super soupy. So it's just another stereo thickener.
More delay. Right.
Or it'll do this. That's for a different thing I've been working on, but it just gives me the, you know.
It's more delay. So, yeah, it's a really beautiful thing, but there's a few sounds there that I just want to be able to kick on. The other thing we did Hotel Caledonia.
Smelly Pornia.
The Scottish Eagles.
And for my part, I had to have the phaser in there.
I know, we did the rehearsal. We start playing the guitar solo. I'm like, where's the phaser?
Where's the phaser? Yeah, I was like, okay, that's
when
it.
Joe Walsh comes in, basically.
So I grabbed my phaser, stuck it on there, but I wanted to go wet dry with it. But the old Phase 90 flips the phase.
Oh.
So, but it's cool because what I did, because I'm just kicking these things in here, and you'll see when I press that button, you see the little phase light there, it changes the phase as I kick the phaser.
Oh, are you saying that the G3 by the gig rig,
Can you imagine?
By the gig rig, G3 can change the phase of a patch?
The stupid thing was, I did the first rehearsal and I'm going, oh, what's wrong? It's like, oh no, it's out of phase and I'm splitting. It's like, well, hang on. I just pressed the button. It's like a flipping idiot.
Well, don't play too much of it.
No.
We got copyright struck for this in VCQ.
But if I get an overdrive sound together, so put the
play all the wrong notes.
All right. Something fell off, and that's awesome.
Awesome.
I love that. It's just a little, it puts the phaser on one side, so it's not ridiculously soupy.
Yeah, yeah.
You still get that phaser thing, but you get all the definition. So that was really cool.
Before we move on to the vocoder then,
Okay.
there is what looks like a prototype pedal on there. Should we not say too much about that?
Let's leave that.
Keep your eyes on that pedal show
Let's
store, among other things, for what that might or might not turn into.
So the last thing, we did Mr. Blue Sky. And Mick says, let's do Mr. Blue Sky. And I think he said he was joking, and I went, we're doing it, that's it, we're doing it.
It was meat feast after a VCQ, and I think we both had a couple of glasses of wine, and we were talking about songs to do. I said, let's do Mr. Blue Sky. I saw a 3-piece do it once, and it was totally amazing. And Dan said, yes, okay then. And then Fingergate happened. Throat infection.
Oh, I don't have a...
Throat infection gate happened.
Thanks, bud.
And there we were learning Mr. Blue Sky.
And then Mick calls me and says, are we going to do this? I went, yeah, we're doing it. And then you call me back the day later, are we really going to do this? I'm like, yes, we're doing it.
What normally happens in a TPS band is I do probably the bulk of the singing. And that means that a lot of the backing vocals and all of that can be organised around that. So there's Doug and Paddy both sing and Dan sing. So we get 4 voices. And having done that for a while, we can slot in together pretty quickly. Now I'm not singing, so we're -1 voice, we're only 3 voices, and everything has to shift, which is not to say it doesn't work without me singing. It says everything has to shift. We got Jake in last minute, who's behind the cameras, to help with singing. But when you've got to relearn everything in 2 minutes, and if you have a listen to the vocal arrangement on Mr. Blue Sky, it sounds like I'm making excuses, but oh my God, we gave ourselves a job to do.
We sure did.
But it all hinged around the laugh.
Yeah. So when we did our first Vocoder show, and I bought this and a couple of other things, and I hung on to this, and I've been looking for an excuse to use it ever since. I said, right, there it is. There's the excuse, and this was going to be absolutely hilarious. But funnily enough, it wasn't. I mean, let's see. So here we go. So I haven't played this since the gig. Let's see if I can. So it ended up being something like
Mr. Blue Sky, Mr. Blue Sky, Mr. Blue Sky,
which was I mean, it's hilarious.
I'm going to ask Dan to sing some different words and play some different chords, because if we get copyright struck for that, we'll have to cut it out. So
Oh, okay.
if we've had to cut that bit out, here's something else that might get the point across.
Okay.
Now he's on the spot, right?
I literally only practiced that.
Yeah,
So let's go.
How are you feeling?
It's just so awful,
But
it's hilarious.
But it understands chords, right?
Well, it's a gate,
Yeah.
right? So if I play, I've got a little bit of normal guitar,
Yeah.
but as I speak into the microphone, so I don't have to sing in key or anything. I can
No,
just
you
speak.
can literally sing anything.
Michael took the dog for a walk this morning, and he did a big poo, 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 poo.
So if you play a major chord and a minor chord,
This is a very happy chord, and I'm so happy, happy chord. Now I'm very sad, 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 Daniel, very sad, Daniel.
And thank you for the inversions.
That's my pleasure.
Yeah. So there you go.
It's so stupid.
It
I had to have another, mic set up and everything, but it did
get a cheer.
It is so much fun, and I love that stuff. I love taking a guitar and turning it into something just completely ridiculous.
Why does it sound so bad? Like why is it all overdriven and?
You could probably clean it up. I've probably got the level up. There's some color things in there. I mean, that I spent a long time with that, and that was the best I could get out of it. And it's hilarious. It's not so. It's a vocoder as opposed to a talk box.
Yeah.
Right?
Completely different thing. Yeah.
It's a completely different thing. But that's what it is. And
Awesome.
yeah, it's really, really funny.
Awesome.
But I liked it. You can. It won't stay on my board, I don't think,
Let's take this away.
unless I can find another reason to use it. But it was one of the things that I really like about pedalboards in general is that it took me 10 minutes to whip something off that I wasn't using, put that in its place.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, now
Yeah.
I've got a specific sound for that song.
Yeah.
I love that. And yeah, it was just super, super fun.
One thing that Dan has covered before, which we probably don't need to go over again, was the way in which you use the tensor
Yeah.
as a sort of faux tape machine.
Yeah, I'll do it just quickly. So we do the intro.
To Shine On You Crazy
Shine On.
Diamond, where I get to be David Gilmour and give it the old all that. And Dan gets to be the keyboard player.
So I've recorded that in there now. That's a loop.
Yep.
So what I'll do, because I'm just sending MIDI messages from G3 into the tensor. It's such a clever thing. But it means I can change the pitch of that loop. So when you were doing, at the start of that tune.
When I'm being Davy G.
The other thing is I'll slow it down and then reverse it.
So the hand signals were 1 chord, 5 chord, 4 chord, 1 chord, and he is telling the tensor to slow up or speed down by the relative intervals that give you those chord changes to play over.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
So I tried, I thought, do I need the tensor? And I had it off my board for a while and I really missed it. Nothing does what that thing does.
It's great. It really works.
It's got a character to it. So yeah, love that. So yeah, that's what I ended up using, and it was a lot of fun.
Nice.
So again, massive thank you to everyone that came out.
Yeah, huge thank yous. We again, no excuses, just facts. We were unfortunately battling uphill with issues that week, but we had fun.
We had so much fun. And Andy,
yeah,
far out, man.
That's the thing. Forget that pedal show band. Andy flipping Timmons.
Just epic.
Yeah.
And it just sounded so good. And yeah. And we played the Cavern.
Yeah,
We played the Cavern.
We
It
sold
was-
the Cavern out.
We did sell the Cavern out. It was
Hooray.
wonderful.
Hooray,
Yeah.
hooray.
So
did you learn?
hopefully, what did I learn? So I learned that I can't. The most important thing for me was playing live with the SG.
Yeah.
You might have noticed every now and then I get a bit excited.
That's unusual, Dan. I've
It
never
is very
noticed
unusual.
that.
But with this, you know,
Yeah.
no problem. But the SG is like, no.
No way.
You
Not for
listen
you,
to me, young
sunshine.
man.
Yeah, yeah.
You control yourself. So that was a big thing. The reverb delay thing has been really interesting, and it might be that I might not have a reverb anymore. It might just be a couple of different delay pedals.
That's why that's why I went back to the Evermore, because I only needed one room sound,
Yeah.
and it sounds pretty decent.
Yeah, it's great.
So it means less space, which is no slight on the CXM, by the way.
I've been using it for ages, and it's the best sounding reverb pedal I've ever heard.
It's permanently installed in our studio setup now, so that's where mine's gone.
And it may be that I'll take it off for a while and go, actually, no.
Yeah, well, I did. I tried to take it off and put all sorts of different things on, and ended up with it back on there for my own stuff that I'm more familiar with. But then when the TPS Band came around, and like I say, only got to stage 1
Yeah,
of it I had to simplify.
sure.
But yeah, sorry, I cut across you. What else? Anything? What about amp wise? Were you happy with how that all? panned
Yeah,
out?
it was wonderful. I think I had ordered a matchless 1x12. It turned up while we were away. So I'm going to give that a go.
Yeah, we need to give that a really good blasting for
Yes.
hours and hours and hours.
Yes.
Yeah.
But Dave Gregory, who's coming on the show again very soon. We're doing a
Wicked.
Firebird episode. But he has the best matchless tone I've ever heard, and he's got a matchless 1x12. So, you know, not the 2x12 is great, but it's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll see. We'll give that some love. The Harlot is, you know, I've always loved the Bad Bob, but Harlot's been a real revelation for me. You know, because we played that once years ago, and I sort of dismissed it. And then I put it back on the board. It's like, this, don't know why, but I've finally connected with it, and it is truly extraordinary. And the SD6.
9.
SD9 even. The SD6 was good, but the SD9 is amazing.
Yeah, and it's funny, isn't it? And again, that's a pedal that we had tried years ago and gone, nah, not for me, mate. And that's great. Again, to reiterate Dan's point about one of the really cool things about pedalboard in this sort of form is that you can just take one thing off and put another thing on. You don't have to start from scratch every
Absolutely.
time. And change and learn and grow, and as you need, or need is not the right word, as you want different things, and as you think something else might be appropriate, you can just take something off and put something back on, and, and then all of a sudden your world changes.
The other thing to say is no pedal on this board is safe.
Yeah.
Since the Dumble episode with Robin, that I'm waking up in the mornings going, thinking about that flipping amplifier.
Yeah.
Just thinking about that clean sound. So I'm going to strip everything back, start again, find, because these two amps I've got here, that's on 15 watts and that's 22 watts.
Yeah.
And they're amazing and I love them. But playing into an amplifier that it's a dichotomy, right? It's got so much headroom and so much character all at the same time. I've never experienced anything like that. I'm like, I feel so connected with this. Right, I'm going to find it. So I'm going to get the high watt recapped.
Yeah, it needs a bit of love, the high watt.
Yeah.
That's why we don't use it more. It's a bit sick.
And grab a bunch of things and go looking for that.
You know what we
plain
should
tone.
do? We should go and see Arv at high watt.
Okay.
Let's go and see high watt, take that, ask them if they can fix it,
Okay.
and go and see them and just check out their operation would be great.
Okay, let's do that. But that's the next thing for me is finding a clean tone that I connect with and then build my sound around that.
Yeah.
Because it is haunting me, that sound. Don't you imagine being haunted by the world's most expensive amplifier? It's like only on that pedal show. It's the most ridiculous thing.
Well, it's like being haunted by a supercar or something, isn't
Yeah.
it? It's like you get a couple of hours in a Porsche 911 RS, and it's like, well, I am never going to own that. So,
Yeah.
and plus, it's rubbish in the Sainsbury's car park.
Yeah, right.
So,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Yeah.
cool.
There we go. What did you take away from the gigs?
A little bit more esoteric, as you would expect from me.
Right.
And this will sound crazy, and you might think I've lost my mind. I am going to stop worrying about tone.
Okay.
I'm going to forget it and build the rig around the music.
Okay.
Every time I do that, I have fun playing.
Right.
So what is this gig? What does it require? What is the absolute minimum amount of stuff I can use to get that job done?
I like that.
Part of that has come from, in recent years, my guitar game has gone from okay to, I don't mean my playing, I mean the guitars I own,
Yeah.
has gone from okay to
Very, very strong.
very, very strong. And particularly the old Strat, particularly the Goldtop, and the 70 Strat in E flat, and also the new 345, although there's a bit of work to do there, those guitars just sound so damn good.
Yeah.
And I've got this theory about tone, and sorry to bang on about it, but for ages, all of us look at this and you say, what can this add to my sound?
Mm-hmm.
What can that add to me?
Yep.
I've come to this fairly esoteric place in my brain that says it can't add any. It physically can't add anything to you. What the wrong amp can do is take away.
Yeah.
But the right amp is going to let you flow
Yeah.
in a way of connection.
Yeah.
Playing the Dumble, being around Andy, being around all the people that come through these doors and the people we go and visit. It's like the job is to remove the barriers.
Yeah. I love that.
Not put in more foundations or whatever you want to say. Not put things in, it's take things away. Now, it doesn't mean amp, cable, guitar. It might mean that, but it doesn't have to mean that. You could still have a complex rig if that's what's enabling you to
Flow.
speak.
Yeah.
But start with the music.
Yeah.
What am I trying to say here?
Yeah. I love that.
Start there.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try and approach it that way. And if I find myself waking up at 4 a.m. thinking about Robin Stumble, which I have many times,
Terrible.
it's like, stop.
Yeah.
You can't have it.
Yeah.
It's like thinking that you're gonna, what will I do if I win the lottery? It is literally a waste of brain space to think about it.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, I've got to find something else then.
Yeah. Yeah. I love
I've
that's
got to
really
find
great.
something else. And stop searching, start making music,
Yeah.
I think.
That's awesome, man.
Sorry, that was very esoteric.
No, that's very good.
Probably not what you wanted to hear, but there we are.
Cool. Awesome. Well, there
Nice.
you go.
Nice.
Al Riggs.
Onwards and sideways, Dan.
And I like that. I like that. Some more gigs coming up, perhaps.
Yeah. Look out for the Mick Taylor Blues implosion.
Yeah.
I've got a side project going on.
Love it.
Playing at the Tane Blues Club in July. So go to the Tane Blues Club in, is it Devon or Cornwall, Jake?
Devon.
In Devon. Sorry to the Devonians and the Cornwallians. And check out the Mick Taylor Blues implosion
Yep.
for some
And,
gigs.
And the Daniel Steinhardt Phoenix Reducing to Ashes tour.
And then we'll see about that pedal show band when we can pick ourselves off the floor and try again.
That'd be good. Brilliant. Thank you all so much for watching. Again, please subscribe if you haven't already subscribed. Please go to thatpedalshowstore.com and grab some merch. Yeah, lovely t-shirt. I really like that one. Classy. Massive thank you to our preferred retailers. All the details in the description below. And of course, a massive thank you to our patrons on Patreon. Thank you very much for your support.
Indeed. And one final thank you to everyone who came to the gigs.
Yeah.
It was fantastic meeting so many of you. People that we see in the comments, names that we recognise, people we haven't seen for a long time. Human interaction, people playing music. We all need to do more of it.
Yeah.
And that is my biggest learn, hopefully our biggest learn of the
Absolutely.
whole damn shebang.
Indeed.
Get out there, play music, have a laugh.
Indeed.
Happy days.
Brilliant. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.